Okay, it's 5:32 on November 17th, and this is the Recreation Advisory Board meeting. The first order of business is to call this meeting to order and establish a quorum. We do have all 5 board members present, so we do have a quorum. We would need 4. So then our next step in this meeting, and our main purpose of this meeting, is to hopefully be able to elect a chairperson. But before we can move to that, I spoke with our law director, and we have to, it would be in our best interest to have a temporary chairperson and a temporary secretary. So just anyone to volunteer to help move us through the next couple items of business. So I am going to make a motion that you all among yourselves, or not a motion, would anybody like to make a motion to move to the elect a temporary chair and a temporary secretary to help us move through the process? And anyone can say, I make a motion to elect a temporary chair and a temporary secretary, and then if somebody would like to second that, then they could do that, and then we could kind of move forward with that process.
I'll make a motion to elect a temporary secretary and chair.
Great.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. No, I did not hear. Does anyone say nay? Anybody against? Okay, great. So now I'll turn it over to you all. If you need to have a discussion amongst yourselves of who would like to be the temporary chair for the next couple of items and who would like to be the temporary secretary would then be the person who could start taking minutes, just kind of start taking notes as we talk and as we work through the next couple of items.
All right.
Does anyone volunteer to be the temporary chair?
Any desires at that end?
I can be the temporary chair. If that's all right.
Fine with me.
It's fine with me. I will gladly take minutes.
There we go.
All right.
Excellent. All in favor of Daniel being the temporary chair and Andrea being the temporary secretary. Great. Well then with that, Daniel, I can turn it over to you, and then you can kind of go on to the next approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes, and then new business. And
What shall we do with those, with the approval of the agenda, or the approval of the agenda
would be next. And then if anybody wanted to add anything, this would be the time where you all could put that forward and see if anybody wanted to add something.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
Nope, the agenda looks fine.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. As for the approval of the minutes, is that?
It seems like.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah. Yes.
I would put a motion on the table, since they were received via email just a few hours ago, to give everyone time to review those minutes. If no one objects, to move those to approve at our next meeting.
Well, as Alan said, we can only the 2 people that were here can
But there were
approve
2
those
months.
Yeah, there are 2 sets
There's
of minutes.
2 sets of minutes, though,
okay.
from the last 2, and then that way we can put that in the minutes, who was present, to remind them for the next meeting who can approve it, correct?
Yes.
Is anyone opposed to doing that?
Nope.
No.
That's my motion then,
Okay.
that we move it.
So then somebody can second
I'll
that motion.
second that.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
perfect.
All right, great. Okay, new business. We just want to have
Yeah,
a
this
time
would-
for discussion.
Yeah, this would really
Regarding-
just be among you all.
Okay.
And it would a chair and then a vice chair. That was something that wasn't in place, but that would be really beneficial to have, so that whenever a chair is unable to be present, then the vice chair would then take on the.
Okay.
Well, I think we should continue to spread the word amongst friends and whatnot about the vacancies that are open still, and try to get several more people on, so that the election of a vice chair will become a little easier. And so I think we need to continue to do that.
Because we have 2 vacancies right now.
That's
We have
right.
2 vacancies right now. My term is up in January, and I don't know if I'll renew or not. I'll know in January, but yeah, we need to keep spreading the word and asking folks if they would like to be a member of the rec board.
Are we maintaining the same process for new members? When I was asked to join, I had to fill out a questionnaire.
It seemed to go pretty well. I would be in favor of similar process.
Did you fill out the questionnaire?
Yeah, I think that was Brandon's initiation idea. Before, I think it was pretty much if you had any interest at all, forward your name to the mayor's office. And if no one comes forward, why, he'll gladly send you a letter telling you you've been approved and appointed to the rec advisory board. So,
Is there a December?
yes,
meeting?
Alan.
If I could throw one thing out there, in addition to the people that were recently appointed, there were others who submitted applications. So a good starting point might be with that pool of people who have already submitted an application. And in addition to that, for many, 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 many years, I can't emphasize that enough, there was always one member of this board from the Athens City School System. And a lot of that had to do with facilities and sharing of facilities. And I noticed on today's agenda that one of the items that we're going to talk about speaks to that, the Morrison Gordon Land Lab and Park Lands. So 2 things. Number one, there is an existing pool of applicants. I'm not sure where that pile of papers is housed. And secondly, I would respectfully ask you to possibly revisit a member from the Athens City School System as one of the 7 members of this board.
And I apologize for a point of order, since none of us have been in this chair position
Yeah.
or any of that. Is there a December meeting of this board?
Yes.
Okay, so I can reach out to the mayor to get that list, so we can have a nominations discussion and share that questionnaire, so that we can distribute that if we choose to do so. Do we have to amend those questions in this meeting?
No, you don't have to. And if you wanted to make a recommendation of how you believe the mayor should proceed, then that would be, the formal way of doing that would be making a motion and then people seconding it. And then that could be like a formal recommendation that you're putting forward to the mayor that I would communicate to him,
Right.
if that's how you would like it to go. Or
Are
how
we
you would like to
comfortable
see it
putting
go.
forward a motion at this time, or do we want to review that questionnaire before we do so, and the list of names?
Well, I think we're going to review the list of names even before we get to the questionnaire.
No, I mean review what's on the questionnaire.
Oh.
I don't recall out of memory.
Yeah, I don't recall what it says.
I
either.
remember it was an essay,
It'd be nice to have. Oh, goodness.
but.
One of the things conspicuously missing from that questionnaire dealt with time commitment. By code, this board meets every 3rd Thursday of the month. This isn't are we going to have a meeting this month? It's the 3rd Thursday at 5:30. So the first question I would want to know is, can the person put in the time? Can they be at the meetings? Can they participate? Another thing I'd like to see in that is the familiarity with Athens and our Arts, Parks, and Recreation program. Has the individual ever been in the rec center? Have they ever been in Arts West? Have they ever been in Sells Park? I mean, what do they know about this? And the third thing is the depth and breadth of the people that they speak with, so that they represent a wide variety of people as opposed to a small single or 2 or 3 small interests. So that we, this department handles a budget between $1 million and $2 million. And you folks as a group are responsible for making recommendations relative to that. Again, not making decisions, making recommendations, providing input. So those are, if you're gonna redo the thing, those are three things that I would consider adding to that, but the time commitment is huge. Not that the time commitment actually is huge in terms of sitting in a seat, but if you can't participate, it's tough to be a fully engaged member. And then, Andrea, one other thing, you may not need to take minutes. Because according to this email that we got today at 3:40, whatever, it says, I've attached the minutes from the September and October meetings. You can make the motion to da-da-da-da. The mayor has tasked our intern, Drew Longaberger, with watching the recorded meetings and taking minutes.
Though, point of clarification, those are the past meetings that we don't have minutes for, and it's a responsibility of every board and commission to take care of their own
But it
minutes.
also says, I will keep supplying them to you as they become available, which is talking about the future, and Drew's with us through the end
No,
of the
that's
year.
past, that's talking about past recordings, because we don't have those. And then that once, as he gets through those, and when they become available, they will send them to us so that we can continue approving, so that we could approve all of the minutes eventually from the year of 2022.
So the past practice of the department providing someone to record, or not record, provide the minutes is no longer in place, I take it.
That was not a practice that was deemed appropriate,
Okay.
and that's what was communicated to me.
Okay, she
So
gotta
the
take minutes
board
then.
is
it's not a
responsible, and that's why we have a secretary, and that's why other boards and commissions have secretaries.
Not a problem. So since some of us are new members here and we're not part of the last round of nominating, some of us are outgoing, like Greg, can we put a motion on the table to request that we're going to request to review the individuals who were not selected to be on the board this round and reach out to our contacts to see what other interest there is to fill those vacant seats before the next meeting?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I think we should be constantly reaching out when opportunity arises, and it might not be before the next meeting, but that's a constant thing until all positions are filled. And yes, according to Alan's good suggestions, we should have copies of the. I have no idea what the questionnaire was that you had to fill out to become a member. I simply submitted my name and a little background information on it.
There was some background question. There was a lot of questions on there, but we can share it. We can share that via email, so
Okay.
everyone can view the questionnaire in case you didn't join under that questionnaire.
Yeah, that was a new process.
It was new,
that the
and-
board decided would be a good idea to help.
Yeah, and some questions
Spread our
may
pool.
be changed, but we can just get a copy of that and share
Right.
it to review when we're reviewing the minutes.
Because at that point, we've had a vacancy for 5 months. 5 months, almost a half a year.
Well, we've had a vacancy for at least 3 months here. What his name escaped me.
Travis, Brandon,
Yes.
okay, and then Brandon just,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, that's what I'm
Brandon
saying.
was the.
Travis's last meeting was June.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we've had a vacancy for 5 months.
So that is motion worthy, to make a motion that we're going to reach out to the mayor to ask for that list of names from the last round and get a copy of the questionnaire.
I second.
Thank you, Greg.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So that was the new members' discussion, but that wasn't the board officers' discussion.
Well,
So if there's something, if you are not ready and do not want to discuss having a new officer,
I feel
set
like
up
if we have
then.
three members, potentially 3 members vacancy, because we have Travis and Brandon's, and if Greg does not renew his term or isn't chosen to renew his term in January, that's nearly half the board. And to choose permanent officers for the next calendar year without seeing who's at the table and having a voice in that might be better to wait. That's my opinion.
I
I don't know how other people feel about that.
I agree with that opinion.
I guess if you as temporary chair are comfortable with like doing it for a couple more meetings, then that could give time to,
Or at least one more meeting.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
That's
I would
good.
I would be all right with that. Yeah, and I think it's better to see, what new members we might have, and also maybe take a little time to think about it, within ourselves who will be here. So, I agree.
So you want to make a motion
Yeah,
to?
I'll make a motion that we will, when we come back in December and have an idea, possibly some new members, we can then elect a new chair, vice chair, and secretary.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. Okay, and then, do we have a date on the, oh, okay, yeah, December 15th is the next meeting. All right. Okay, so it looks like moving on to Land Lab at Morrison Gordon and Parklands, unless I missed.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. And that was something that I had introduced. It's still kind of in a early stage for sure. But as a youth, I went to Morrison Elementary School, the original, and there was a land lab in the back, which still exists. But it was about in the third grade or so, and I remember that pretty well because we would go back there, and whether it was English, I remember going back and writing haiku, which was pretty cool. I'd never done that before, and we were in nature. So what I was proposing is I'd like to, in some way, resurrect the land lab. And probably the biggest thing is going out and clearing out where it's grown over, as it surely is, and making it accessible again. Because one thing that has been lost in the new Morrison Gordon building is the space that they once had for recess. There was a huge area compared to now, and now there's not much at all. In fact, they cannot have more than one grade out at a time because there's not enough space. And not necessarily does the land lab have to be a within school activity for students. I think that it would be nice someday to have the kids and the parents, if they're interested in maintaining and making the land lab better. So my thought, I'd like to investigate that and see how possibly we might be able to assist or get that project going. And I don't know if that's technically, is that outside of the city? Is that?
I would have to look with code to see what land that falls on.
But it's still it's the
'Cause I'm
school
not
district.
familiar
It's the school district's land.
Yeah, so that I just think that's something that wouldn't take much, and I'd be willing to put in effort on that end to try to get that going again. So
Could be an
know.
interesting collaboration.
yeah, and I think it's just in conjunction with my love of being outdoors, and I think we have a lot of nice and wonderful places around here in the city that are parks, and so there's always room for more cool places to be.
So it would really be a collaborative effort, correct? Because this wouldn't fall under the city Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
This is a
depending on
school board
the
decision.
which I'm pretty sure it's not city land, but depending on who owns it, because it might be also private land. I don't know, but that could be a good opportunity to have a collaboration.
Daniel, are there land labs at the other schools? I felt like there was one at the high school.
There is.
There is?
Yeah, and I think that I didn't want to just focus on the one school. That's just where my attention is right now, because I'm there often. But yeah, there is one at the high school, and I remember that was largely how it is because of Rob Weinfertner, his efforts, and he had just started that when I was in high school, where we would go out and identify plants, and you can do so many things. And I mean, you could just have a regular class outside in a different setting, and I think a lot of times the impression that can make on a kid is lasting. I mean, it was with me, so.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, we have the riparian area that we're working on, and we just had a tree planting there this past weekend, and that's definitely an opportunity where we have our preschoolers, and we have our before and after care, and we have camps as well. So we have a lot of child programming, and we've been really talking about how do we use that space, and what do we do so that we can take kids out, right in our back door, out of our back door, across the bike path, to have this immersive outdoor educational experience. And so it's also something that we would love to see guidance with and assistance with in a project that's just waiting to happen. Could be a land lab. What defines a land lab? I think I have in my head what I think it is, but I'm not sure if that's...
Yeah, I don't,
learning.
technically I don't know. It's always just been a space out in nature where you can do classes or just learning.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking, being able to use that space okay.
Daniel, would you like me to make an introduction to Dr. Gibbs? He handles all that stuff. And the reason I asked that, I've been the liaison with Dr. Gibbs with the Athens Public Schools on use of gym space for the volleyball program. And have a very, very close working relationship with him. So if you'd like, I can make the introduction. If you'd like to sit down and meet with him someday.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just give me a shout in the next day or two, and
All right.
see if we can set that up.
All
Meet
right.
your schedule.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. The one thing that Dr. Gibbs does emphasize, though, is that people respect the property and take care of it. And I'm sure in this case you would. They do have school gardens at both Morrison and East. And the one thing about the land lab, as you well know, this is primarily for K through 3 students. We no longer have or pre-K through 3. We no longer have kids through 6th grade at Morrison.
Yeah.
So it's a younger audience. But yeah, just give me a shout the next day or two, and I can set something up and
Okay.
make an introduction.
Appreciate
I
it.
find it pretty reasonable to work with, and easy to work with.
Yeah, we have a good working relationship, so I'm sure if there's an opportunity for collaboration, he would be up for it.
All right. Do we need to make a motion that we'll continue to work on toward that?
I don't think
or-
unless there's like a formal recommendation that
Okay.
you want to get to the mayor, then,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, I will continue to, and thank you, Alan. Okay. Next, the Athens Farmers Market.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Well, they moved their first, now the dates are escaping me, but the first Wednesday and Saturday of November, that was the first week that they were at the community center. I think it's been, from what I've heard from the vendors, from what I've heard from the executive committee, Farmers Market Executive Committee, I think it's called an executive committee, that it's going really well, and that people have found them, and there's not really any problem in that realm. The first weekend was really, really sunny, and it was like 80 degrees, if you remember. So it was a great opportunity to see what it could be, because it was definitely very busy. And then last Saturday it was really rainy and cold, but there was still, they said business was a little slow, but that it was still, kind of what you would expect with weather like that. So I think it's gone really well. I know that So this is kind of an opportunity for you all to ask questions if you have any about it, about the Athens Farmers Market and how it's going and anything that we're doing on our end.
The arts part of farmers market, are they paying a separate rental fee
No,
to you, or are they piggybacked on farmers
they
market?
do that with the farmers market, so they have it worked out with the farmers market.
And is the current ordinance for farmers market that's on the books states only agricultural products should be sold, can be sold there? Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am aware of that, but the ordinance is saying that we would give a space and, provide a space. And so that's what we've done. And so we have plenty of other people who come and vend at the community center throughout the year. And so this isn't stating that this was the only sole purpose of this space, that they've become a part of the farmers market, and that's what they're working with the farmers market, and that's what they do. And so that's what we're trying to meet the need.
So you're not
Need with
policing
them.
the fact that they're not following the city ordinance and that they're not collecting sales tax. You're just concerned with they pay their rent and they do what they want.
No, that's not how we view it at all. But if you have specific questions, I can relay those to the mayor about your questions. Do you have questions about code?
Well, yeah,
The code and the
it
agriculture
currently
and the-
states that they're only allowed to sell homegrown agricultural products.
Mm-hmm.
So that would eliminate a lot of vendors that are there, and it would eliminate the entire artsy thing from being in that space. Those aren't agricultural products. So the original code, the way it's written, until city council changes it, which I hear that they're working on, they're violating the original ordinance, even though they're saying the original ordinance said that at the rec department grounds, we will always be promised a space. And that was back when they had 5 trucks and tomatoes and corn out of the back of 5 pickup trucks. But now it's, how big it can get on Saturdays on a nice day when it was at the mall. So I just was concerned if they're just paying their rent and you're not concerned with they're not charging sales tax. I have to pay sales tax when I buy something in any other store, in any other situation. Are they paying city income tax on the sale of their goods?
That's a great question for the Athens Farmers Market. So those are questions specifically about how they handle their wares and how they handle taxes on their own end as a business. And that's a great question for the farmers market that they can answer for you.
So back to the question of, you're just concerned they're paying their rent, and that's good. Here's how much we're charging you. You pay us that fee, and whether you charge sales tax or not is not a concern of the rec department. Or if you're selling popcorn, that's not a concern of ours either. It's just, this is the rent fee, and you paid it, and you're allowed to be in this space at the city rec.
So I think that you're putting words in my mouth, one. But also, I think that there's a little bit of a misconception of kind of the purpose of the ordinance, which was from where it came from. And from what I understand is that the idea was that the city, it doesn't say that it has to be at the community center or the rec center, but that the city and the East State campus, that's pretty much the only area we have left, would, as long as the Athens Farmers Market wanted it, would do our best to hold a space for them is kind of the purpose of it. And so that's what we've done. So if you have specific questions about code, then you would need to talk to the code director and how we are or aren't, working within those parameters. And if you have specific questions about the Athens Farmers Market and how they handle their income and how they handle how their vendors handle their income as businesses, then you would have to ask them.
Okay, so those issues don't concern you as the rec director? Those questions should be addressed to someone else?
That is exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
What I'm telling you is that you should be reaching out, and I'm helping you. I can help connect you with the code director, since it's city code. I could help you direct you to the law director, and so you have specific questions about that.
No, I can contact those folks. I
Okay.
just wondered what your opinion was as the director of the property that they're on.
My goal is to help our community experience the Athens Farmers Market, have the Athens Farmers Market. And for what I understand, they were ready to move, and it was something that they needed to do for the health of their farmers market, which is the health of our community.
I guess piggyback on what Greg's asking there, or some of the things he's asking is, those type of questions are very legitimate, but I think they should have been asked 3 months ago or 6 months ago. And what's conspicuously missing here was the involvement of this board in offering input on the move. When we hear about it on Facebook 11 days before the move as a fait accompli, that's a little disconcerting. And I've had numerous people tell me, ask me, did you know about this? And the honest answer I had to give them was no. So yes, there are a lot of questions. One I have is, how was the fee set of $15,000? Because as I read our fee structure, it's not consistent with anything that we have. The minimum that should be charged is $20,000. So I'm curious as how the fee was set for them on an annual basis.
So, for the indoor use of the space, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I used the indoor space for B&C, our fees for that for the nonprofit organization.
Nonprofit? We just discussed that these are for-profit entities.
Alan, though, I think the Athens Farmers Market itself is a registered nonprofit entity.
The entity is.
The Athens Farmers Market is.
But nobody's going down there.
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, that's technicality.
And they're probably the rent payer.
Right, yeah, on behalf of for-profit entities. Don't get me wrong, the vibe down there, and not last week was horrible. It was like going to Cleveland Browns game in December. You're lucky to see the other side of the stadium. But the vibe down there is wonderful with those, what are they called, solar panels, the closeness, the sense of community and all of that. Again, what we seem to be missing here is process. And people were left out of the process. Far East Side Neighborhood Association had been told repeatedly from the administration that before any moves took place, they would have a seat at the table. Never happened. These folks, it never happened. City Council didn't even know. It's not a criticism of the market, but the process. And I think that's part of what Greg's getting at here. And
So if I can continue, the inside rental rate is
Yes.
what is tacked on to that $15,000 because it was somewhere in the $5,000 range. I have my math, but I don't have it right in front of me right now because I did think through this a lot. And then I factored into staff costs of us and what it would cost us to be the host. And then we also used a square footage of using the space because we have that already broken down of what square footage on our outdoor spaces cost based on the HapCap Go Bus lease that we have. And so I factored all of that in together to come up with a price. My original cost was more than $15,000. The farmers market said that they could not do that, and so I took off some of the extra staff support that I was offering to provide as a part of what we do at the community center, and they said they were okay with that, and so we don't do that extra blocking off and cordoning off of those spaces twice a week. They're in charge of it all with that.
Okay.
So.
All right.
As to the process, I did bring it up on our last meeting, And that was approximately 2 weeks after I had gotten the phone call that they were ready to make this move permanent. So it was a quick turnaround. They wanted to move. They wanted to be here at the beginning of November. And so we did what we could to make it happen for them. That's what we do as a facility that rents out spaces. People say, we would like to use your space, and we do what we can to help them rent the space.
But this is not your traditional rental. I would hope you would agree with that.
They're using the facility in some cases once a week when they move indoors, and that's, we have rental agreements, not that we have facility use agreements. Senior Club is one that uses it year-round, for instance. So we have facility use agreements with those organizations, and so this is the same in that sense of, so we're not giving away anything for permanent use. They are using it at certain times during the day, certain times during the week, just like any other organization who wants to have a repeated year-round, guarantee to that space for the moment.
But it doesn't have the impact on the neighborhood that this does, in terms of traffic, noise, safety. Not even close.
Does anyone else have any questions about the farmer's market?
I have a simple question. There's a lot of signage there. Is there going to be anything considered about directing people to proper crosswalks to cross the street? Both weekends, I almost saw a child get hit coming out of where we would typically exit or where the go bus would go in. People were walking there to cross the street where there's no crosswalk.
Yeah.
And the traffic is so bottlenecked that they couldn't see. It may not have been the best decision of the person crossing with their children to cross there.
Yeah, so human behavior is.
But yes. But by the time they got into the middle of the road and could see the oncoming traffic, it could have been a bad situation. And we would, as adults, we would hope we'd use this crosswalk, but sometimes we may have to
Yeah.
remind people of that. Like
Yeah.
that was.
I heard from Chief Reimer, who saw something similar. So I don't know if that was, because that was the first weekend. Yeah. I've been talking with the Athens Farmers Market folks about how if they could put people to help direct traffic, and so I can bring this to their attention as well. I do know that this is going to be the third Saturday now, so people are still getting used to or acquainted with using that space and how traffic flows, but I can certainly bring that to their attention.
Could you possibly ask if they can change the duration of the one traffic light that it enables you to turn in
I have
to
spoken.
the rec center or to turn into the Far East Side neighborhood so we can get out of traffic and get home?
I have spoken with Jessica about that with the city EPW, and me and Sally stood out there, talked about different things that we could try with the traffic lights, specifically timing, and so I can bring that back up to them because they were supposed to get traffic counters out. I think it was the first Saturday, but they had a delay, and I don't think they've been able to get traffic counters out yet because that was the idea, was to start collecting data to see how many vehicles pass during certain times, how frequent, so that they could get a better idea of what to do and how to manipulate that light.
Well, if you're in line to go from the Far East Side out to State Street or from the rec center to come out to State Street, it's about a maximum of 4 cars before the light turns red.
The CVS light's 15 seconds, the other light's 20.
Yeah. So you don't have a lot of time. And if someone's turning in front of you on a farmer's market day and they're going to go to the left and you want to go to the right, you'll never get out.
Or there's pedestrians crossing State Street.
Yeah. When you talk to Jessica, can you add, this is my naivete on how the traffic counters work, when you say a certain time of day. I live over in that neighborhood as well, and if you're coming from uptown that direction and you don't go all the way around to the other end of East State Street to come, if they're counting cars by hour, like if they count by hour or minutes or blocks of time, all the backup traffic behind there isn't really showing how many are trying to go through there. So how do they?
Yeah, let me clarify. It's the where you're turning into the rec center and then leaving. So that
Right.
space. So not necessarily.
But, so I
State.
guess that's missing my point.
Okay,
And I'm
yeah,
not meaning
yeah,
to be
no.
argumentative or anything, but traffic flow to get past the farmer's market is significant. And it always has been where the exit ramp is on Saturday mornings. So how are they counting how many are trying to get that way and then can't?
Yeah.
Because of the light, if it's only counting the turn.
I will ask, and that could be my misunderstanding of where they're putting, if they were only going to be putting there, because there were a couple intersections where she was talking about, and so I could ask it. I was thinking it would just be that one spot, but it could be crossed, but I could get clarification.
Yeah,
on that.
'cause-
And it basically, like, I don't know, it's those strips that you go over and it puffs air and then it gives you a number. And so whenever they look at the data, I've looked at counters before data and it's given by minute, so I don't know if they'll have it by minute or if it kind of truncates it into like hours or whatnot, but,
Right, but then
yeah,
the
I
people
can
who-
get the kind of
Yeah.
where.
So the people who can't turn wouldn't be counted if they abandon their route to cut through to get around the bottleneck. That's why I'm asking, like,
Okay.
are they employing other methods to
Okay.
see, like, oh, wow, between 8 a.m. and 10:30, there are 10 cars every minute of that available time waiting at the light, and they can't get through.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's just I'm just
Yeah.
wondering.
No, I can ask that, and she would have better information on what, because they did do, and this is me kind of repeating what she has said, so I'm not going to do as good of a job, because I'm not a traffic engineer, but that they did do a study in 2016 or 2017, because at that point, the farmer's market was also considering coming back, and so they started analyzing the traffic at that space and what it did, and they did make changes to that intersection specifically based on anticipating that the farmers market was going to move that within that year. And I wasn't around. I'm just trying to recall what she had said, and that was in a meeting with farmers market and members of the Far East Side Neighborhood Association. And so she definitely has a better understanding of what has been done to that space and how they've collected data and learned about it, and then what they will do, and if there's something else that they need to add to their kind of data collection to see about the traffic flowing off of the exit ramp, turning right, and then hitting those two lights. Okay. Just want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
Applebee's, CVS, pool, community
Bob
center.
Evans. Yeah.
Oh,
There's
you're
an
also
extra
talking
light,
about
well, because there's an
beer.
extra light that wasn't, I don't think that extra light down there was there in 2016.
Gotcha. You're talking about all the way past.
It-
I've seen some very strange traffic back up on Fridays, all the way past Kindred Market,
Yeah.
which seems new to me.
It's-
That
that's-
doesn't
that's
seem
why
like
I'm
that's been
asking, like, there's-
happening, and I don't know what the deal is with on Fridays.
That's because you can no longer, if you were at Sonic.
Oh,
And you
Stimson
wanted to-
Avenue.
Stimson, is
Yeah,
that what?
you can't get out of that. East State Street now is the only way out of town to the east.
Gotcha.
And believe it or not, it's gonna be that way till next October 1st.
Gotcha. That's right. Thank you for connecting those two,
Yeah.
because I was like, why is this happening?
Catherine, what type of feedback did you get from the general public from that first weekend with, obviously, you've had some issues?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever I first got there on that first Saturday, I parked over at the pool, and at that point there wasn't really anybody parked there because it was early, but I parked there because I knew that's where I could walk, I'd be fine, and people were pulling up to the bike racks over at the pool, and I noticed there were like three families, and I knew all of them, and I knew that they lived in East Side, and I said, "Are you coming for the farmers market?" And they said, "Yes, we can actually bike here." And and that was something that we had talked about with the farmers market, of having that eased, better access from the bike path. And so it was really fun to see that play out in real time, right in front of my eyes. But I've heard really great things about the farmers market and the feel of it. It definitely is a nice community feel. And if you've been to markets in other areas, it feels much more like that now.
Well, I'll say as a commuter on bicycle, the East State is a barrier. And so I can see having it on that side of the road is going to be more benefit. If you're riding a bike there, I think it'd be easier. So that's nice to hear. Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any questions before we move on? Okay. Old business, tennis and pickleball project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I passed out the quote I got this afternoon from Total Tennis. I spoke with Zach yesterday on the phone. He's the one who organized the quote for us. And he kind of went through it, kind of gave me a heads up that, so basically what he did was he took the design, which was what we originally had bid out. And if you recall, the bid came back and it was well over the 10% that we're legally allowed to be able to accept. It was 560 something, 560 some $1,000. And so then I went through Sourcewell and Equalis, which are our kind of joint purchasing cooperative membership organizations, or that we have, and I put out emails to different companies that had anything to do with racket sports, and I heard back from one, and I want to say it was AstroTurf, and they said we'll put you into contact with one of our regional contractors, and it was Total Tennis called and said, hey. So going that route, he went through and he quoted us based off of what the original design was. So the design that we put out to bid. And that's what he's quoting here, is that same design. And that's $653,515 for 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. That is not good. But Zach did say that there are some things that we could do differently if we don't follow the specifications that were laid out in that original design. It sounds like, the original design is like the, best case scenario. Everybody would want to have this, very expensive cushion surface and, the best fencing and aluminum poles and all that fun stuff. And so he said there are ways that you can bring that cost down without compromising the quality of the playing surfaces. So, one of the things that he said was the one that we were looking at was a cushion surface. There's the next kind of grade down would be a 4-layered. It's a different surface. It's not as cushiony, but he said it would somewhere in the ballpark of $40,000. It would save us in there, and it would still be a good surface. He did say that the lights, and that's something that he's still working on getting an exact quote for, but that in our original design it called for aluminum poles, but he said if you go with steel poles, it will reduce the cost. He's not sure by how much, but it will reduce the cost. There's different kinds of fencing that we could go with that would reduce the cost, though he cautions that if we wanted to put windscreens up, we wouldn't want to have a lighter weight fence, because that would, impact the stability of the fence and the life of the fence. So I think we're kind of still in this, how do we move forward and get something for our community? And it might not be what we would in the ideal world hope for, but we have to get something better than what we have right now. And so there's a couple different options. He said that the building of 2 courts without lights would probably be in the ballpark of $350,000. With lights, he was thinking $375,000. He did say that if we went with 2 courts and 4 courts all in the same space, that it would reduce some costs because then you're not having construction happening in 2 different locations on that site. But he didn't have, the exact quote for that. I don't think that would bring it. If 2 courts is $350,000, that's not going to bring us anywhere. It's still not going to be affordable with what we have. And so something else that I've been working on is been working with Sale and the streets crew to see if we could crack seal the asphalt that's behind the community center. The whole thing needs crack sealed anyways, and Sale thinks that crack sealing is the way to go. It doesn't need a whole new overlay on that space. And then I found something called Sport Court, and there's actual one that's called Pickle Grip, and it's meant to be specifically for pickleball. And if we can get a surface that is not cracked, so a pretty flat surface, then you basically put this Sport Court on top of it, and then you have a good quality playing surface for picklers who want to play outside. And you can move it, the life of it's 15 years. I'm also, trying to figure out if that is something that we do some crack filling and repairs on the current tennis courts. And Sale has some suggestions on that. I say Sale, he's the director of EPW. Yeah, I realize. And so he's in charge of, street projects. He's in charge of a lot, but one of those things that they do a lot, obviously EPW, is the street projects. And so in his whole experience and career has been building roads and bridges. And so I said, look at this as it's a surface, it's asphalt, how can we fix this asphalt? So we're still swirling around, and so this is an opportunity for the board to provide any recommendations of how to move forward. I checked with the auditor. We still have the money sitting there. It's $300,000. It's not going anywhere. And as we move into the new calendar year, because I checked to see because there's some things that if you don't spend on a PO, then it, in 2022 it will not be there in 2023. But since this is associated with a project, it will be there in 2023. So that's not to worry. I have been working on a grant application for this specific project to try to get more money to put towards it. So what are your thoughts on our tennis courts and pickleball courts?
My first question to you, Catherine, would be kind of like, what's the interest that you get from the local community wanting to kind of play tennis, play pickleball? How many reservations, bookings do you get? Is this something that the facility improvements definitely going to increase, or is it something that the interest isn't there anyway type thing?
Oh, the interest is there, and I think it's there for both sports. So I hear from pickleball that it would be awesome to have pickleball courts outside. We do have pickleball courts outside, but they're just on our tennis courts that are in disrepair. And I've heard from several different tennis players as well. And one of the things that they've, specifically talked about and asked about is if we were going to have 2 tennis courts, could we have a fence blocking off the 2 so that whenever they're playing by themselves and they have the tennis ball launcher, I don't know the correct terminology, but they're practicing by themselves, that they don't have to go running, because I think that's what happens, and I've seen it too, where people are out and they're playing by themselves, and so I think that that if we were able to have a space outdoors, then I think it could improve people's drive and experience and ability to learn how to play tennis, to learn how to play pickleball, because right now there's definitely the barrier of you know, we have two courts on our 4-court tennis court that have nets up. And then on one of those courts, there's 2 pickleball courts that are lined out. And they don't have nets. And there's cracks that are running through those. And then the other 2 courts on our current courts are beyond having any kind of nets on. And so I think that's, you know, I feel the pressure just because I would like our community to have a good, you know, playing surface to be able to do what it is that they love. And then I think that could foster, if we have a good place, that could foster learning those skills and being able to play. And for me, lights have been really important, and they still are. But I think there's, just because people have the play at different times, you know, and right now whenever it gets dark at 5 o'clock, 5:30, but it's also could be cost prohibitive. So I think there's just, like, the current courts don't have lights on them. Not all of our outdoor spaces have lights on them. Some do, some don't. And in an ideal world, you know, I want lights. In an ideal world, I would like to have tennis have their own space and pickleball have their own space. But the ideal world is not within reach right now. And I think not doing something is harmful.
What's the difference between 2 courts with lights and 2 without?
He said roughly $350 without lights, and he's thinking $375 with lights if we go with steel, not aluminum.
Gotcha.
But that was still a little bit iffy. He said he would have a better idea about lights after Thanksgiving. So whoever they vend with or contract out is probably, and cost and material costs are continuing to rise, and they're not decreasing. And so the other thought is we could have 2 tennis courts, and we also put some pickleball courts on there. And that's not ideal, because then, of course, then you run into people using that space and coming, and then they're already taken. But that's also, we could do that project with what we have.
What would maintenance look like for like putting in new courts? Like, I guess I'm wondering like how often they would have to be maintained. Like, if the current ones aren't good, I guess I'm wondering about new
Yeah.
ones, like
Yeah.
what that looks like and how that would be like budgeted for. Like, if that's in your normal budget or if that would be something like extra. that would-
Yeah, it would become part of our normal budget ask is what it should be. And I know based on the surface that you get, they recommend there will be like reconditioning of the courts, different kinds of crack repair that you can do. A lot of it has to do with the foundation that you put down in the first place. And so I think tennis courts have a life of 20-some years in general before needing, I would say, more repair. Am I correct in that? I feel like I've read that somewhere that there's like every 5 years, there's like 5 to 10 you would need to recondition, resurface. But Greg, I would yield to you on that one.
Well, the courts that are there now shows 2 good examples of things. The first 2 courts that are in total disrepair, and these 4 courts have been in need of repair for over 20 years. So the first 2 courts were just asphalt, primered, and painted. The second 2 I requested to test and put in cushion courts, and those 2 courts have lasted twice as long as one of the options of Total Tennis saying, well, eliminate the cushion court and you can have a cheaper court. So I think cushion courts add 2 real important things. For the 50 and older adult to have that kind of cushioning for their bodies and longevity and being able to outdoor exercise, and for the length of time that those courts will stay good, as opposed to needing more repair. Any outdoor court is going to need repair far sooner than the same surface indoors because of just the weather. But they do need to be resurfaced, and resurfaced means just reprimed and then choosing the color and repainted. is basically the only maintenance if they're done well in the first place. My main gut feeling now is to really understand, from your perspective, what does it take to get a project of any city project to be in the top 5 choices of these are the projects that we really want done, and these are the projects that we're going to find the money and allocate the money and do these projects. If they're not done this year, they stay in the top 5 and they'll be moved up as those top 5 projects get done. That's what I'm really wondering, because the tennis courts have needed repair for 20 years, and it's never made it, period. It's never been on we're definitely going to repair the tennis courts. So what does it take to get a project in the top 5?
Well, we're in it because that's what we're working on.
Well, we're
That
not
was
in-
one of the first.
We don't have the money to do
Yeah,
it.
we
to do it
we have
correctly,
the $300,000 that we set aside,
which is about
based
half, it
on.
sounds like.
Hey, I gotta stop you guys for a second. When I said I'd be the temporary chair, I should have stipulated I have to leave at 6:30.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna have to make a
Okay.
motion to have someone else be in the temporary chair.
The temporary chair.
Temporary? Well, I think Catherine Ann can lead us through the rest.
Yeah,
of
I
the
can
day.
Is that
continue
o- is
on
that
for the
okay?
rest. Yeah, yeah, and I will say that I will hold us to the 7 o'clock end time as
Okay.
well.
Oh,
So
I
if we want to make it
apologize
through
for-
any other moments, but thank you, Daniel.
Yes, and sorry I have to leave early.
That's okay.
No, my feeling is
To
that
your
we should
point,
table the whole project right now.
Give me a shot.
I don't think we should proceed with pickleball or tennis
Tomorrow, Monday,
until it's
Tuesday,
all in
my
one
work's gonna be
place,
for you.
all in the right place, and all done the best way possible. As opposed to any of the 8 alternatives, in my mind, are totally unacceptable. So I think we should just table the whole thing. If you can't do it right, let's don't do it at all. I mean, you'd be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on tiles as a replacement for the real thing, so to speak. And why would we want to go that direction? Let's either keep saving money or finding money in the budget to do the project the ideal way, which Lancaster's doing, Circleville's doing, Belpre did. That if they're finding the money, I would think Athens, Ohio can find the money. So let's just wait and table the project and say we don't have the money right now. But sooner or later, it's in the top 5. We're going to do that project, but it might not be able to be done this year. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. Is there an expiration date on that holding the project money?
I would have to ask the auditor.
But even if we would give that money up, it would be like, well, if you're in the top 5 projects to be done and that project costs this much, eventually, hopefully you'll reach the #1 project for that year at that time, and you're the first one to get that money, and if it takes 3/4 of the money or all of the money, that project is now done, it's off our checklist. That's how I see it. But I just wonder who decides what project should be in the top 5 to get done, that are most meaningful for the community.
I've requested at several meetings that one of the things that the board do is provide guidance on what projects we need to have over the next 5 years to help prioritize, to recommend prioritization. When I became director, this was something that we had talked about while I was on the board. I carried it forward. I'm still carrying it forward. It's not dropping off. So this isn't losing priority.
So the answer, Greg, is this board can decide a top 5 and recommend it back. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And based
And
on
this
what
is
the
your
board has
number one.
talked about in
Well,
the
it's not my
past
number
is that
one.
this
It's
is.
just like, can you personally, since you have the powers that be, make it a top 5 project? Be this year or next year or 3 years from now?
It is. I don't
The
know how.
six- the
I don't know how to more
$600,000
clearly.
top
I don't
project.
know how to more clearly
Not the
outline.
sports top
But
project.
we're. I'm existing within the budget that I have and the income revenue that we get, the tax revenue that we get, and then the general revenue that we get. And then we have to go for grant money. Unless somebody wants to write me a check for $300,000 today to the city of Athens, not me, then, you know, I don't have ideal funds. My goal and my purpose is to make sure that the community, that I'm spreading it out as equitably as possible. I'm working very hard to get more money for this. In the meantime, we need to have something, either pour it all into the current repairs that are needed at the tennis courts, fine. This community needs a playable surface, and tabling it and not moving forward means that it's not prioritized, and I am prioritizing it.
Well, you can say it's not prioritized in the sense of we're going to give you plastic tiles to play on, as opposed to a different type of surface. That to me is not a priority. That's just an alternative solution that in the long run is not good. I mean, I'll travel 45 minutes to play on a better surface. And that's why I think that the original project that Terry had drawn up from Total Tennis, that was a great project. It was just never sent to council. I don't know if you still have a copy of that project, but that was the ideal. And like he said, to have them separated and have pickleball courts over here and tennis courts over there, they should all be together, I think. Just not only for cost-saving reasons, but for noise-saving reasons. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I would rather see it done the best we could, and if the best we could, if you said is $300,000, then give us one new tennis court and 2 pickleball courts. And I have to feel ashamed when I travel and people say, how many courts do you have in Athens? And I say, we don't have any dedicated pickleball courts. Really? Yeah, yeah, we don't. And the rec center only has 3. It's limited hours. They're not open on Sundays. They can't play on Saturdays. I feel embarrassed when I'm asked that. So either do it right so we can say, yes, we have great pickleball courts. We have nice tennis courts. So that's just my personal feeling.
Greg, to your point, when you said do it right, when council approved and I'm putting on my city council hat right now, this is not my Alan Swank hat, this is my city council hat. When council approved the 300,000 or whatever, it was for a specific project. And that specific project was 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. A specific project that was estimated to cost roughly that amount of money by an architect. The fly in the ointment is that the architect was almost $300,000 off. Council said at that table where you're sitting right now, and in good faith, after much discussion and many meetings, passed the ordinance to fund that project.
What is the path forward, Alan, if there was such a gross error in the estimation? Is there a path forward to get a bigger allocation, to reduce the grant burden, to make it the right project?
It would involve another ordinance from council to allocate the money to do that. And if we're going to do this right, that's what we're going to have to do. And if a proposal, if I was sitting, you're sitting where I normally sit, Andrea, if I was sitting in that chair today and somebody came to me with one of those 9 or 8 or 7 options, I'd have voted no to fund it, because that's not doing it right. So if your recommendation, not tonight, but if your recommendation is to go back to the drawing board to do this right and find the money, then I will work with the other 6 council people to attempt to do that. I'm one vote. I'm one person.
Well,
But that's the process, to answer your question directly.
That was my question, because I think Catherine, Ann, and Greg are both on the same line of communication here, is that it is a need, there is interest, there's people who would use it, we should have it, we've neglected it for a long time, it's been a priority, but the bucket is too big right now. So instead of discussing it every month, like, what are we gonna do? At what point does it go back to council and say, can we get more money to reduce the other fundraising or, grant burden to make it more realistic to happen before 2030?
Which boils down to one very simple word, and Greg used it repeatedly: priorities. And if a quality pickleball facility, or let me say it this way, a quality court facility is a priority, then we have the money to fund it.
So isn't it the job of this council to say that that is a priority to the mayor, that we, like, how can we work to move this
Well,
forward?
yeah, let's make sure we change this. The recommendations now go through the director, which
Correct,
they
right,
should.
right.
But yes, but
that's what
eventually
I'm
to the
saying.
mayor,
That
yes.
is the charge here, to
Yeah.
say, this is a priority, we want to do it right and quit pushing the conversation forward.
Right.
So
And it's-
how can we do that to keep the allocation or revisit the allocation to increase the size of it to do it the right way?
Right, and as the liaison to council from this committee, I take that to the City Services Committee, and that's the committee this would come out of, to fund it properly.
Are you saying to move forward, we need to move forward to council and ask for more money?
Ask for more money to
You
do
would
it right.
ask, we are the ones that would say, we need more money.
We need more money.
So
And
are you
then
willing to-
council
Are you willing to do
would-
that for us? Or that's our advice to
It's
you, I
not
guess.
about willingness at all.
Okay.
It's about the reality of the fund lines that I have. And
you have
whenever you
currently.
talk about, and then when
Right,
you
right,
talk about taking 300,000 more, okay, so I guess we're not gonna worry about the playgrounds. We're not gonna worry about the condition of our fields. We're not gonna worry about
That's
shelter
not,
houses.
no, that's
So-
not
No,
what I was
that's-
saying.
Well, that's what I'm telling you all, is that you have to think about, whenever you put more eggs in one basket, you're taking away from another basket, and with the money that I have currently.
Right.
And so.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
That was not my suggestion,
Yeah.
to reallocate your budget. My suggestion was to find funds elsewhere
Okay.
for deprioritized projects, not taking other rec money, to infuse money into the rec budget to make this happen finally. Not
Yeah.
say, oh, nope, no more playground equipment
Yeah.
for 50 years, we're gonna make but there's other money other places.
That's
Such
good
as the
clarification.
$2.4 million in ARPA
if-
money we have.
I was thinking of ARPA money
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
2.4
specifically.
million.
So we have 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
So if you would like to move forward to make a motion to recommend to the mayor to find money to make this project happen.
I would, or Greg, do you want to make the motion? Do you want me to make it?
You can make the motion.
I would like to make a motion that we send a recommendation to the mayor to explore some other funds outside of the rec budget to increase the amount of money available to make this happen as a priority this next year, because it's been neglected for a long time. And there are other funds that have come into the city that could be allocated for that without decimating your budget. I will listen to the recording to put that in the minutes the right way. But,
I'll second, yeah.
yeah, okay, thank you, Ash.
All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so the community center roof, that project had been out to bid, and that's to repair the community center roof and, well, to replace it and to put solar panel attachments so that we can eventually have a solar array on it as well. And so we did open, we had, I believe that we did accept and offer one bid. And if they, decline, then we would have another option. So we had 3 total bids on that project, which was really exciting. So that is moving forward.
What's the cost of that project?
The bid that we moved to accept was $425,000. I think the estimation was 485. And the second one, if the 425, if they decide for some reason that they don't want to accept, then the next one is 521,000, which was within the 10% over what was estimated. And the majority of that is coming out of the old community center fund line. So there was one that we are now going to be able to sunset that was meant specifically for the community center build. And so we are clearing the rest of it out. It had $317,000 or $18,000 in it left. And so that will go towards the roof plus some from the 273 fund. Any questions on that? Okay, so I did not get the opportunity to provide my handy dandy 3-page notes for you all. But highlights are that we got the ODNR NatureWorks grant for repairing the skate park. So that's really exciting. It's $18,759. They announced those the first, or I guess the second week of November, they announced those awards, so that was pretty exciting.
What will they be doing?
So we're gonna work on the cradle or capsule. That's the feature that kind of like is the dome, repairing that specifically. And then Skate Jam is gonna donate funds to hopefully add another feature. I don't know that's kind of what they've been wanting to do. That's what they did with the last repair. We repaired, they donated funds to create another feature on the skate park, and it sounds like that's what they want to do again. And so, yeah, so the total estimate for that project was $25,000, and the NatureWorks grant awards up to 75% of that total cost, which is how we got to the $18,759. So that was really exciting. Halloween was great. We had a great event, a great turnout from folks. We're excited to do that one again next year. We were over on Court Street, and we programmed from 1 to 4 for the community. So that was really exciting. Already talked about farmers market. That's happened. We have youth futsal that's going on right now. We just had pickleball clinics. Greg was teaching some of those through Live Healthy Appalachia, and yeah, we're rocking and rolling. We are going to launch in December and January kind of a mileage challenge for our community, and so we're still working out the details. We have been the guinea pigs and have been doing our own inter-office mileage challenge for November to try to figure out how we want to do it with to open it up to the community. So hopefully that'll drive some people to come to us, but also just get active through these winter months whenever it's cold and dark outside and you just want to curl up.
Sunday opening? What's the
Oh
latest
yeah,
update
thank
on that?
you. Yes, we are going to open up on Sundays. Gosh, I was like, I feel like that's why it's so helpful for me to have my notes, but I didn't have that opportunity this week. But yeah, we're going to open up on Sundays beginning December 4th is the Sunday. Yeah.
Hours?
1 to 5. 1 to 5 on Sundays. That's where we will start at.
Any chance of adding more pickleball time on Saturdays? My wife has been there every Saturday for over a year, and I have videos, and there's not been a soul on the volleyball courts. In fact, sometimes I ask the kids at the front desk, can you take those down so we can shoot basketballs, and they do. So that's prime time for working people to be able to play pickleball on Saturday when there's no one in there playing volleyball.
You can always talk to Erin about it because she has the kind of facility use. She does all the scheduling. And so I know whenever youth basketball picks up, I honestly can't recall because last winter was my first winter as director. If we have Saturday basketball, I know it's in the evenings. I feel like there are some Saturdays. So she maps out facility use.
Okay.
So
She's the facility use person.
whenever it comes to all of the scheduling in, that is her domain.
And programmer as well? And programmer as well to put on programs?
Well, she's not, as assistant director, she doesn't do as much programming as she would have, or as she did whenever she was program specialist. So we have, but she's definitely, she helps coordinate, she kind of oversees the facility and coordinate activities. And then, but we now, fortunately, we have a program specialist, we have a rec coordinator.
Who's the
and,
program person?
Nicole Albers. She's largely focused on our childcare programming, though, right now.
So all the money that Live Healthy Appalachia made, you could have made yourself with a monthly pickleball lessons, clinics, blah, 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 that's never been asked about or wanted. Every clinic that I've suggested to Aaron that we hold has been very successful. And I'm just wondering, why isn't that kind of thing on a monthly basis if there's a demand for it? Obviously there was.
It just takes staff or having an instructor, and so that's, if you wanted to be that instructor.
I've been that instructor.
Yeah, I know
and
you
would be
have. So
willing
if
to
you
be
wanted
that
to do it every month, I think that's more so that if you come to us and you tell us, hey, we want to do these things, we will figure it out, and we typically accommodate people and help them.
So talk to Nicole about that, or should I
No, you
contact
would
Aaron?
you would still talk to Aaron about that, because that
Okay.
would have something to do with reserving space, and because she works with the instructors who do all the fitness classes, so I think it would be treated as that.
I just
kind
think
of.
it's a way to generate some
Yeah.
income for the rec
Yeah,
center.
yeah.
Yeah, I think going off that as well, like obviously I mentioned pickleball, maybe I know you've done futsal and basketball and things like that, but like we have through our program, we have an incredible opportunity to get some of our student coaches experience and potentially voluntary, paid, whatever it's going to be, and maybe then educate the youth of Athens community, thinking about volleyball clinics, thinking about obviously when the weather, we've talked about baseball, softball, softball's been kind of something that's missing. So I think I'd love to sit down with Erin and talk about kind of what sports we can offer, and thinking about instructors that we could potentially provide from the university in our program that need practicum hours, etc. And see if there's a need for it, you know.
Oh, there is. I mean, that's all we need is people to do it.
And then
we're
it's a good way to
stretched very,
generate
very
income, right?
thin. So yeah, and yeah, and that would be amazing.
Yeah, well, again, from my perspective, I'd love to branch out, use more sports, more clinics, more education, which would be awesome for the community and,
Yeah.
and the youth sports setting.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to see that. Okay, 5 minutes. Are we good to move on to kind of announcements, any other business, and then adjournment? Does anybody have any questions? Because we have 5 minutes, and I'm going to hold us to it.
It's always good to end the meeting on a positive note. I've got one announcement from City Hall. Monday night during City Council committee meetings, one of the things we talked about was the budget and the allocation of the various parts of the income tax. Rec gets so much, this department gets so much, this department gets so much. The proposal, which we will have for first reading next Monday, is to increase the rec department share of that budget by 1%. Which will be somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 additional dollars. So the way that works is we'll have first reading next Monday, second reading 2 Mondays from that, and third reading and vote 3 Mondays from that. Again, I'm only one vote, but judging the temperature in the room Monday night, I'm pretty sure that we will pass that, which will bring some additional funds to the rec department's budget for next year and hopefully beyond.
Yeah, that was when the mayor and the service safety director told me that they were going to request that from council. That was very, very exciting. So we have been doing really well. We've exceeded, or almost, well, at this point we have, because at the closeout of October, we were almost at getting 100% of the revenue that we were estimated to get, which helps form our budget and all that fun stuff. So we've met it, yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Nearly at 100% for the year
By
to
the end
date,
of-
or for the year to date up to the
Yeah,
end of
year to
October?
date, up to the end of October, because they do kind of closeout reports, and we get those usually a week to 2 weeks into the next month, once all the different bills and whatnot have come out. And so that's really exciting, and that feels good. So, our next meeting will be December 15th. Sounds like there were several recommendations that were made to put forward to the mayor from this board tonight. And whenever you have those minutes ready, if you would send those out, and then I can highlight, I can go back and say, okay, these were the formal recommendations to the mayor and let the mayor know. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.